Governor Greg Abbott down in Texas has become the latest Republican to engage in what I think is going to prove a long-term error, and that is to endorse in vitro fertilization and the surrogacy industry.
Do you agree with the Alabama Supreme Court that embryos are human beings?
Well, listen, obviously there's some uncertainty lingering from this, but candidly, let's go back to President Trump, because President Trump put out a statement on this that I think a lot of people agree with, and that is a goal that we all kind of want to achieve, and that is we want to make it easier for people to be able to have babies, not make it harder. And the IVF process is a way of giving life to even more babies. And so what I think the goal is to make sure that we can find a pathway to ensure that parents who otherwise may not have the opportunity to have a child will be able to have access to the IVF process and become parents and give life to babies. And because this is a relatively new issue, we're just going to find ways to navigate laws and fact situations that are very complicated.
Okay, hold on. So right there at the end, Governor Abbott says, now look, this is a relatively new situation. Right, that's my whole point. So when you have a relatively new situation with a brand new technology that touches on the very origin and destiny of human life with all sorts of bioethical concerns that you yourself are acknowledging, is the prudent response to that to go full steam ahead, let's go, baby, make a bunch of kids in test tubes and lock them up in a freezer forever? Or would the more prudent response be caution? And if you're going to proceed at all, proceed very cautiously, or maybe take a moment here and sort out some of these bioethical issues, because we're talking about the creation of human beings. What do you think is more prudent? Obviously, the latter is. Now, what Governor Abbott is trying to do here is he's trying to stay on the good side of President Trump, because President Trump came out on this issue in response to the Alabama Supreme Court faithfully interpreting the Alabama state constitution and saying, look, the Alabama state constitution protects life from the very beginning. The very beginning is the moment of conception. If we as pro-lifers really believe that life begins at conception, then that raises all sorts of problems for the IVF and surrogacy industry, because the IVF and surrogacy industry, first of all, sells human life. And two, I mean, that is the product. It's the only product you could possibly be buying in the IVF and surrogacy industry. But two, treats human life in a way that we would not consider morally acceptable. For instance, locking people away in freezers forever, or creating human beings, sometimes where major accidents happen. Back in early 2023, there's a case, I think it's still being litigated down in Texas, where the scientists accidentally mixed up the test tubes, and so they created a human being with the wrong sperm and the wrong egg. They created a human being with a mother and father who had never met each other, who were married to other people. What happens to that person now? Well, I guess the couples sue, and maybe there's a civil payout or something like that. Well, now you got a human being who has been created deprived of a mother and a father, who's left in no man's land. This is just one example of the myriad examples of hazards that come along with establishing the domination of technology over the origin and destiny of human life. So I get it. I understand why, as a political matter, President Trump doesn't want to run in 2024 on shutting down IVF, which many people, I think mistakenly, but with good intentions, are supportive of. I get that. I'm not saying he has to make it a plank of his campaign. But if I were advising President Trump, whom I love, who's the most pro-life president in my lifetime, if I were advising Governor Abbott here, if I were advising Kari Lake, who also came out in favor of this, I would just say, hey guys, proceed with caution. Maybe downplay this thing a little bit. Maybe don't come out in defense of a morally dubious, and in the case of Alabama, illegal and unconstitutional activity. Because what they're saying, what Governor Abbott has said here is, look, we love it because IVF is a way to make more human life, and we want more human life. And that's true. So is rape. Rape is another way to make more human life. Do you support that? No, you don't. Am I saying that rape and IVF in the surrogacy industry are identical? No, of course they're not identical. But the principle stands. Good ends do not justify immoral means. And there are immoral ways to create human life. And that doesn't in any way call into question the value or the dignity of the human beings who are created in that way. Far from it. Pro-lifers will be the first to tell you, we support the right to life of everyone. Just because someone is created in an unfortunate or a sinful or unjust circumstance doesn't mean that you have the right to go kill that person. For goodness sakes, I've interviewed people who are the product of rape, who are great gifts to the country and great gifts to their mothers and great gifts to the world. But that doesn't justify the immoral means. And if we're going to grant, we all grant this, we pro-lifers, in principle, that there are moral ways to create people and immoral ways, and the ends don't justify the means, then I think we all have to acknowledge there are some bioethical issues here with in vitro fertilization. Maybe the wise thing to do, not to come out as defenders of an industry that sells people. Now, the CNN host here recognizes this problem. They recognize this problem that if pro-lifers have been arguing till we're blue in the face for decades now that life really begins at conception, well then, if we all of a sudden start defending an industry that not only creates people in test tubes, but then locks them away in a freezer, destroys those embryos if they are not used, reduces them if too many take hold, just all sorts of abuses of human dignity and the natural law, well then don't we look like hypocrites?
Are you saying that families in Texas who are using IVF have extra embryos that are frozen, do not need to worry?
Well, so you raise fact questions that are complex that I simply don't know the answer to. Let me give you a couple of examples, and that is, I have no idea mathematically the number of frozen embryos. Is it 1, 10, 100, 1,000? Things like that matter. What I don't know is families who may have frozen embryos, what happens if they were done so that a mother could have a pregnancy, but after those embryos were frozen, the mother passes away? What happens then? What happens if after the embryos are frozen, the mother and the husband, they get a divorce? Here's my point in telling you that, Dana, and that is, these are very complex issues where I'm not sure everybody has really thought about what all the potential problems are, and as a result, no one really knows what the potential answers are.
Yeah, I'm not sure you have either, Governor Abbott. I can't tell if he's a smart man, so I can't tell if this is just a cynical political play here, or if he genuinely doesn't hear the words that are coming out of his mouth. That whole little monologue there at the end, he goes, oh, there's all sorts of moral questions, all sorts of really just practical questions this raises. What if the parents get divorced? What happens to the little babies who are stuck in the freezer? What if the mother dies and you got all these babies in the freezer? What if this? What if that? Yeah, I don't know how many there are. Are there 1? Are there 10? Are there 1 billion? I don't know how many of these babies are just stuck in freezers right now. So anyway, that's why we need to go full steam ahead with IVF. What? That's a total, talk about a non sequitur. What are you talking about? Now, perhaps it is the case, I don't even know what the more charitable read is here for Governor Abbott. But is he just being cynical, or is he genuine? Let's just say he's not understanding what he is saying. Well, now he's heard it. I've heard it. These people are maybe working it out in real time as they say it. Okay, well then let's follow our logic to its logical conclusion. If there is some chance, let's say it's a 5% chance, let's say it's a 1% chance that we're creating who knows how many human beings to lock in freezers or to destroy, that we're doing that as a matter of public policy, probably we ought to slow that down a bit, huh? Especially if we're conservative, especially if we're pro-life. I understand. Sweet little Elise and I struggled with our first child, and not struggled with him. He's a sweet little boy. But sweet little Elise and I, with our eldest son, it took a couple of years to conceive him. And we go to the fertility doctors, and they just become a sales pitch for IVF. And I understand how painful it is. I understand how tempting it is to just do whatever it takes to get a little child. I totally get it. When you follow your reason here and not just allow your emotions to drag you away, when you follow your reason, you say, okay, does life begin at conception? Okay, should we be able to buy and sell human beings? Should we establish the domination of some scientists in lab coats over the origin of human life? Should we lock away millions of babies in a freezer forever? When you follow your reason, I think at the very least you have to recognize, okay, this thing has problems. We ought to slow it down. And the conservative pro-life politicians, most of all, should follow that logic. That was a good clip, okay? Ring that bell. Subscribe to the Michael Knowles YouTube channel now. Now, thank you very much. We'll see you next time.